further, yeah.
Right, we're here at the MacKenzie River at Dad and Dave at the crack of dawn there, checking the nets for platypuses as part of our annual platypus survey. So yeah, we're really excited by the results every year. That we're keen to see if there's platypuses moving upstream and downstream, if they're having recruitment, if they're having babies and they're dispersing as well, and seeing how they respond to the environmental flows that we're sending down the river.
Platypuses were widespread and common in the Wimmera River system in Western Victoria as recently as 20 to 30 years ago. But now, the only population is in one small waterway. They have otherwise disappeared from the entire catchment. Wimmera CMA, in partnership with the Victorian Environmental Water Holder, is helping sustain and expand this fragile population by carefully managing environmental flows where these platypus are known to live and breed. For the past decade, Wimmera CMA and wildlife ecologist Josh Griffiths from CSIR have been monitoring this small population for signs of survival and growth since the Millennium Drought and Grampians bushfires almost wiped them out.
So CSIR and the CMA have been monitoring this population for, I think this is into its 10th year. Prior to that there was some earlier surveys done, but what we've seen is, unfortunately, we've seen a fairly significant decline over that time, largely due to the drought. But since that drought's finished, and with the management actions that the CMA are doing, in particular the environmental flows in the river now, we're starting to see the population recover, but it is a very slow process because these animals are long-lived and slow breeding. But the good signs are we've started to see the population expand in distribution, and we can particularly attribute that to the environmental flows. And in the last half a dozen years, we've also seen a number of juveniles appear in the population, which we didn't have evidence of reproduction for about 10 years previous.
So at the end of the drought, this part of the lower MacKenzie virtually dried out. There used to be sort of a fairly stagnant pool where we are now, but then dry up and downstream. And now you can see it's looking a much healthier habitat. So the channel's no longer choked full of reeds. We've got the water quality's looking pretty good. We've got those aquatic vegetation as well, which is a sign of healthy river, and a lot of this woody debris, which is what all the bugs and fish like. So we can see that this lower section is now just much better quality habitat for platypus as well as everything else. And we're starting to see the results of this.
In 2015, Wimmera CMA and CSIR introduced cutting-edge environmental DNA technology, or eDNA, to the platypus surveys for the first time, providing an opportunity like never before to track the movements of these unique monotremes.
So with our eDNA sampling, what we're trying to get is a representative sample from the waterway. So I've just used the pole to take a sample out of the middle of the water. We then use a sterile syringe to sample that water. These filters screw onto the end, which is nice and convenient. And then we just need to push that water through the filter, and all the DNA and cellular material gets caught on this very fine filter here. And then this filter is what goes back to the lab, and they can extract the DNA from that, and then using a platypus specific probe, they can tell us whether there's platypus DNA in this water sample and therefore living in this area. And by doing this along the length of the waterway, we can get a really good understanding of how much of the waterway the population is inhabiting, and whether that's increasing or decreasing over time.
On the final night of this year's surveys, we were thrilled to meet Hope, a healthy juvenile female about 18 months old. She joins other platypuses, which the community has helped us name, including Ted, Max, Kenzie, Smoot, Dusty, Amber and Maddie. We found Hope in a new section of the river, downstream of previous findings, giving us hope for the future of this fragile platypus population.